Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Stories of the Human Heart. Today. The single quotes as chapter opens beneath the restless London sky. City that never sleeps, where secrets hide behind glass and rain, and where one woman's strength quietly begins. To rewrite the story of a man the world thought it already knew. The days following Emma's hiring at the Leighton Foundation blurred into a rhythm of light, sound, and pressure. Every morning she arrived before sunrise, her coat damp from drizzle, her heart wrapped in equal parts hope and exhaustion. She was building something larger than herself. Yet she couldn't shake the memory of that question, "Do you still think I'm gay?" whispered in a tone that carried no arrogance, only the weight of someone daring her to look beyond rumor, beyond walls, beyond masks. Sam Leighton was unlike any man she had met. His presence filled rooms like a silent symphony, never loud, never forceful.
Ow.
Yet everyone moved in tune with him. The board trusted his instincts. The city envied his elegance. And gossip twisted around him like ivy, feeding on mystery. But Emma had begun to see another version. A man who worked long after the lights dimmed, who studied budgets line by line, who spoke of art like it was medicine for wounded souls. The exhibition project consumed them. 3 weeks, one deadline, no second chances. The theme was reflections of humanity. A daring concept that would blend classical inspiration with modern emotion. Sam's idea, Emma's execution, and a city's eyes waiting to judge. She worked with sculptors, digital artists, painters, and photographers who each demanded miracles. And somehow she found the strength to deliver. Every piece she approved carried not only artistic worth but human truth. Every color chosen was a whisper of empathy. Still, she felt the tension building, not just in the schedule, but in her own chest. Sam appeared without warning, sometimes at dawn with black coffee, sometimes at midnight with questions that sounded more like confessions. His eyes always calm, yet searching, his words measured yet heavy. "You don't sleep much, do you?" he asked one night as they reviewed installation blueprints. "Neither do you," she replied without looking up. He smiled faintly. "Perhaps we both prefer the quiet when the world stops talking." The air between them had changed since that first meeting. It wasn't flirtation, not yet, but something deeper. Unspoken respect turning slowly into connection. She told herself it was professional admiration, but the human heart rarely obeys logic. When their hands brushed while adjusting a frame, something small and warm passed between them. She drew back quickly. And he pretended not to notice. Outside the foundation, whispers grew. Magazines printed recycled stories about Sam's elusive love life. One outlet wrote that he never kept company with women. Another suggested he was secretly engaged to a fellow patron of the arts. Emma tried to ignore it, but she felt eyes following her at every event meeting. Some pitying, some envious, and some sharp with judgment. She didn't care what they thought. She told herself, but late at night, as she washed paint from her hands. The words echoed anyway. One evening, the city felt unusually still. The rain that had become their constant background had finally stopped, leaving streets gleaming like silver glass. Emma stayed behind after the team left, perfecting the lighting. On a central sculpture, the weight of silence, a massive glass installation that fractured light like emotion itself. She was crouched near the base, tightening bolts. When the reflection in the glass shifted, Sam's silhouette appeared behind her. "Tall and calm, you should rest," he said gently. "The piece won't change after midnight." She didn't turn. "Neither will your reputation if I fail." He walked closer, his reflection merging with hers in the glass. "You carry my burdens too, easily," he murmured. "I hired you for your art, not your loyalty." She looked up at him then, eyes bright but weary. "Loyalty comes naturally when someone believes in you." That made him pause. Something in his expression softened. "Belief is dangerous," he said quietly. "It makes people forget how fragile truth can be." For a moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the faint hum of city power beyond the walls. Then Sam stepped beside her. His sleeve brushed hers as he reached to adjust the same bolt. Their fingers almost touched. The proximity sent a quiet tremor through her. "You've rebuilt this place," he said after a pause. "You gave it breath again." "I just did my job," she whispered. "No," he said, his tone lower now. "You reminded me why art mattered in the first place. Something about the way he said it, almost reverent, almost broken, made Emma realize that beneath his perfection was a loneliness too deep to name. She saw it in the small hesitation before his smile, in the way his hands stilled when laughter filled the room, like he didn't believe he deserved to join in. She wanted to ask him what had hurt him so deeply, but before she could, Leia entered with a file. And the moment dissolved into professionalism again. Days turned into a restless countdown. The opening night neared. Pressure rose, and the gossip intensified. A tabloid headline appeared: "The Millionaire and the Curator Hidden Affair or Artistic Alliance." Emma froze when she saw her name printed beside his, Sam's photo captured mid-smile. Her face blurred behind him. She felt exposed, cheapened, reduced to someone's headline. When she entered his office later that morning, he was already reading the article, jaw tense. "They will not stop until they have something to destroy," he said quietly. "I'll call their editor." She replied, "No," he said, closing the paper. Silence is louder than denial. "But they're dragging me into it too. Then let me carry that," he said, meeting her eyes. "I started this noise. I'll end it." The words struck her, not just for what they meant, but for the quiet protection behind them. He wasn't a man defending his ego. He was a man shielding someone he cared for. She wanted to protest, but stopped, realizing that arguing would only wound his pride. Instead, she nodded. "Then we focus on the work always," he said, the faintest smile ghosting across his lips. That night, the rain returned, heavy and wild. London shimmered beneath lightning flashes. Emma walked home through puddles reflecting neon light, her mind replaying his voice, his gaze, the way he stood between her and the world. She reached her small apartment, lit a candle near the window, and exhaled for the first time. She admitted to herself that she was falling for a man who existed in headlines and mysteries. Someone she could not reach without breaking something inside her. But fate, as it often does, had already chosen its path. 2 days later, disaster struck. Shipment containing the centerpiece sculpture, a priceless collaboration from Italy, was damaged during transport. Fractures appeared across the glass base. Panic rippled through the team. The insurers threatened withdrawal. The artist threatened to withdraw his name. Emma felt her world collapsing. She locked herself in the restoration room, pacing, trying to calculate what could be saved. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from the unbearable pressure of failure. Sam found her hours later, sitting on the floor beside the fractured sculpture, her palms pressed against her temples. "Emma," he said softly, crouching beside her. "It's just a piece." "No," she said. "It's the soul of the exhibition." "And you are its heart," he replied quietly. She looked up, startled by the emotion in his voice. "You can't fix this," she whispered. "No." He agreed, "But we can rebuild it in 2 days." "1," he said, his confidence calm as stone. "I'll call my people, you call yours. We'll create something new." They worked through the night, side by side. No titles. No barriers, only to humans against chaos. Dawn painted the sky in pale gold when they stepped back. Exhausted but victorious, the new structure stood luminous. It's imperfect yet breathtaking, its cracks filled with liquid silver, refracting light like healing scars. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "It's honest," he said. "And maybe honesty is rarer than perfection." As morning light streamed through the windows, he turned to her, eyes silver in the dawn. "Emma," he said quietly, "you asked me once why I let people believe rumors about me." She nodded. "It's easier," he said, "to let them talk about what doesn't hurt, than to tell them about what does." "And what hurts you, Sam?" she asked, her voice barely above a breath. He exhaled slowly. "Once, I trusted someone I loved more than myself," he said, "and when that trust broke, I learned to hide behind labels. The world called me mysterious, then cold, then uninterested in love. It was easier than explaining heartbreak." For a moment, silence filled the room, soft and fragile. Emma felt her own eyes burn. "You're not cold," she said quietly. "You're just tired of pretending." His gaze held hers, long and steady. The air seemed to pulse between them. "And you," he said. "You're not afraid of me like the others." "Why should I be?" she asked. "Because I can ruin you," he said, a shadow of truth beneath the words. "Then don't," she whispered. The clock struck 7. Breaking the spell, he stepped back, composed once again. The show opens tomorrow. He said, voice formal now, try to rest. She nodded. But sleep would not come that night. Guess? Her heart had already stepped into a place from which logic could not return. Outside, the city woke under the scent of rain and ambition, unaware that behind the glass walls of the latent foundation, two souls, one scarred by the past and one brave enough to face it, were slowly, quietly, beginning to change each other. And though Emma didn't know it yet, the exhibition she had built to celebrate human truth would soon expose one more that love, even when hidden behind wealth, pride, and pain, will always find a way to be seen. The rumor that changed everything. Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Life-Changing True Stories, where every heartbeat tells a truth the world has forgotten. Last night's rain has dried, but left behind the scent of something shifting in the air, as if London itself is holding its breath for what is about to unfold. The exhibition that could make or break two lives, one built on silence and one on courage, is finally here. The morning of the grand opening dawned in a silver mist. Emma stood before the mirror in her small apartment, fastening the clasp of a simple black dress. Elegant but not loud, her reflection looked older, wiser, touched by sleepless nights and quiet victories. On her kitchen table lay the invitation card embossed in gold. Reflections of Humanity, hosted by the Leighton Foundation, below the title. Her name appeared in small italic letters, curated by Emma Taylor. Seeing it printed like that still made her chest tighten. It wasn't just a job anymore, it was proof she had survived years of rejection, and somehow earned the trust of a man the world couldn't stop talking about. By 7 that evening, the gallery's glass doors opened to a flood of light and people. Photographers lined the steps. Flashes sparked like lightning against tuxedos and gowns. Inside, chandeliers shimmered. Violins played a slow melody that mingled with the hum of conversation. Emma moved through the crowd with a professional smile, thanking guests, adjusting displays, guiding donors, her eyes searching unconsciously for one face. Sam arrived without announcement. His entrance subtle, yet magnetic. He wore a midnight blue suit, his tie absent, the top button undone, the kind of elegance that never asks for attention but receives it anyway. The crowd parted instinctively, conversations quieted. He walked with calm assurance until his gaze found hers across the room. A small smile tugged at the edge of his lips, one that only she seemed to notice when he reached her. He spoke softly enough that only she could hear. "You've done something extraordinary," she exhaled, relief and emotion tangled in her chest. "You believed I could, no?" he said, his eyes soft. "I believed you already had." The exhibition unfolded like a dream. Each room bathed in different light, representing human emotion, grief, hope, forgiveness, and rebirth. Critics murmured approval, donors whispered admiration. Journalists scribbled notes. The centerpiece sculpture, the one they had rebuilt from fragments, stood under a circle of golden light. Glowing with veins of silver through its cracks, guests paused, their expressions softening as if the art itself was speaking. By midnight, the success was undeniable. Leia approached Emma with tears in her eyes. "We did it," she whispered. Emma smiled, her exhaustion replaced by quiet pride. Even the city's harshest art critic called the show a hymn to resilience. The applause that night wasn't just for art, it was for the courage behind it. But as the lights dimmed and guests began to leave, shadows lengthened too. At the edge of the crowd stood a man Emma didn't recognize at first, tall, thin, dressed in a dark coat. Holding a camera, his expression unreadable. When she glanced back a moment later, he was gone the next morning. Headlines exploded across digital screens. Leighton's secret muse. Millionaire's night of intimacy caught on camera. Emma froze. Heart hammering, the photos were clear. Her and Sam standing near the sculpture, his hand gently resting on her shoulder. The angle and timing made it look like something else entirely. The captions were cruelly suggestive within hours. Her phone filled with messages, some supportive, others venomous. The foundation's PR team panicked. Board members called emergency meetings. Reporters gathered outside her building. When she arrived at the office, Leia rushed to her side. "Don't say anything," she whispered. "Sam is handling it," inside his office. Sam stood by the window, the city sprawling behind him. His expression unreadable, a newspaper lay open on the desk. "They'll twist anything they can," he said quietly. "It's my fault," Emma said, her voice trembling. "I shouldn't have stopped," he interrupted, his tone firm but gentle. "You did nothing wrong." He turned to face her fully, his silver eyes steady. "The board wants me to issue a statement, and what will you say?" She asked. "That the rumors are false," he replied. "But they'll still feed on them, won't they?" She said softly. "Yes," he admitted. "Because lies are easier to sell than truth." He paused, then added with a quiet fire in his tone, "But I don't care what they sell anymore." That sentence lingered in the air like thunder. Later that afternoon, they sat side by side in the Foundation's private lounge. The chaos of reporters muffled behind glass walls. "This isn't new for you," Emma said, her fingers tracing the rim of her cup. "You've lived with stories like these for years, yes?" he said. "But it's different now. Why?" she asked. His eyes found hers. "Because this time, someone innocent is getting hurt." She looked away, not trusting her own heartbeat. "You can't protect me from gossip. I can try," he said, his tone low. "And if I fail, I'll face it with you, for the first time." Emma saw the cracks in his control, the small tremor in his hand as he poured coffee, the faint shadows beneath his eyes. This man, whom the world called untouchable, was quietly breaking himself to shield her. And something inside her began to shift, not out of pity, but out of something deeper that evening. The board gathered for an urgent session. Emma wasn't supposed to attend, but Sam insisted. She's the curator. She deserves to hear the accusations. The atmosphere in the room was thick with tension. Older men and women, with clipped tones and colder eyes, questioned Sam's judgment. "You've compromised the Foundation's reputation," one of them said. "Your personal life has become a liability," another added. Sam sat perfectly still, listening, then spoke in a tone that cut through the noise. "The only liability here is your obsession with image over truth." The words silenced the room. "Miss Taylor has done nothing wrong," he continued. "If my reputation is damaged because of my loyalty to good people, then perhaps it's a reputation I no longer want." The meeting ended in strained silence. Sam walked out first, his jaw tight. Emma followed, unsure whether to speak when they reached the hallway. He turned suddenly, his voice softer. "I've fought 1,000 battles in rooms like that," he said. "But this is the first time I've wanted to win for someone else that night." Emma couldn't sleep. She walked through the empty gallery, the silver light from the repaired sculpture dancing on the walls. Her heart felt heavy with gratitude and confusion. She thought about how icily the world could turn kindness into scandal, how one photo could undo years of work, and yet she couldn't deny the warmth that filled her every time he looked at her, as if she was more than just another name in his orbit. Around midnight, she heard footsteps. She turned, and there he was again, Sam. His jacket slung over his shoulder, his shirt sleeves rolled up. "You couldn't sleep either," he said with a tired smile. "It's becoming a habit," she said. "This place feels different at night. It's honest," he said. No cameras, no masks. They walked slowly through the hall, the echo of their footsteps soft against marble. He stopped near the window where the city lights shimmered below. "Do you ever feel," he began, "like you've lived so long behind other people's expectations that you've forgotten what you actually want?" "Every day," she said quietly. "Then what keeps you going?" "The hope that someday someone will see the real me," he said, his voice low and steady. She looked at him then, and for a heartbeat the world held its breath. He reached up and brushed a strand of hair from her face, his fingers hesitating just near her cheek. "You shouldn't be near me," he said softly. "Why not?" She whispered. "Because people like me ruin good things." "Then don't ruin this," she said. And for a moment, the quiet between them was louder than thunder. But before anything more could be said, the glass doors opened. Leia's voice echoed down the hall. "Sam, they found something." He straightened instantly. "What is it?" "The photos," she said breathlessly. "It came from someone inside. One of the board members sold them." Silence filled the room like smoke. Betrayal had always found its way back to him, and now it had returned wearing a familiar face. Sam's expression hardened, not with anger, but with resignation. "Of course," he said quietly. "It always starts from within." He turned to Emma. "Stay out of this, no," she said firmly. "If they're trying to hurt you through me." "I won't just watch, Emma." His voice was low, almost pleading please, but she shook her head. "You told me once art was about truth. Well, maybe this is ours." The next day, news broke again. This time, from a source none expected, Sam himself. Standing before microphones outside the foundation, his words calm but unflinching. "Yes," he said. "I have spent my life behind rumors and assumptions. I will not feed them anymore. The woman they call my muse is not a scandal. She is the reason this foundation remembered what honesty looks like." The crowd erupted in murmurs. Cameras flashed. Emma watched from a window above, tears blurring her vision. That confession changed everything. Not because it ended gossip, it didn't, but because it made truth louder than lies. For the first time, he didn't hide behind mystery. He faced the world with open hands that night. Emma found him in the gallery again, standing before the cracked sculpture, silver light tracing his face. "You shouldn't have done that," she said. "You didn't have to, I wanted to," he replied. "I'm tired of living half-truths. And now?" She asked. "Now," he said, stepping closer. "Maybe I can start living for something real." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Or someone her breath caught." His words carried a tenderness that made her forget every warning. "Every wall, Sam," she said softly. "I don't know what this is, neither do I," he admitted, "but it feels like peace outside." The rain began again, soft and endless, washing the glass in streaks of light. Inside, two souls stood closer than ever, bound not by titles or expectations, but by something the world could never headline: truth. Asterisk the betrayal beneath the surface high, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Life-Changing True Stories. Tonight's chapter dives into the quiet storm that follows truth. When the applause fades and the lights dim, we often discover who stands beside us and who never really did. The morning after Sam's public confession, London awoke to chaos wrapped in curiosity. Newspapers sold out before noon. Headlines screamed his name: "Billionaire defies board, defends curator." Online commentators divided into two armies, one calling him brave, another calling him reckless. Yet somewhere between the noise, a few voices whispered something else entirely. He finally looked human inside the Leighton Foundation. However, silence ruled. Employees spoke in cautious tones. Meetings were held behind closed doors, and the board prepared its next move. Sam had dared to challenge their authority, and men who lived off control never forgave defiance. Emma walked into the building that day with her chin high, but her stomach knotted. Whispers followed her through the hall. Half pity, half envy, she ignored them, heading straight to the gallery floor, where workers were already dismantling parts of the exhibition. The post-show cleanup should have felt routine, yet every movement carried tension. As if something vital was ending before its time, Sam appeared hours later, his suit impeccable, but his expression distant. "They've called an emergency audit," he said quietly. "They want to review every decision, every expense, every contact, including me." She asked, "Especially you," he replied, his eyes softening. "I'll handle it. You can't fight them alone," she said. But he only smiled, a sad, knowing smile. "I've been fighting them alone for years." That night, she couldn't stay away. She returned to the foundation long after the staff had gone. The hallways empty except for the echo of her heels. In Sam's office, a single light burned. Papers scattered across the desk like fallen leaves. Sam sat behind them, his tie undone. His face illuminated by the dim glow of a lamp, he looked up when she entered. "You should be home, so should you," she said. "I don't sleep well when there's a storm brewing, then we're both cursed," he murmured. She approached the desk, scanning the papers, invoices, reports, donation records. "They're searching for something to use against you," she said. "Yes," he replied, "and they'll find it. Even if they have to invent it." He leaned back, eyes fixed on the ceiling, Power is fragile, Emma. People think it means freedom, but it's really a leash made of gold. Her heart ached for him. For the way he carried burdens no one saw. Why did you let them in? She asked softly. Because once, I believed we wanted the same thing, to protect art. To build something honest. He paused. I was wrong, she hesitated, then reached across the desk, her fingers brushing his hand. He didn't pull away. Whatever happens, you're not alone, she whispered. You say that like you believe it. I do, she said, and he smiled faintly. Then you're either brave or foolish. Maybe both, she replied. Days passed in a blur of tension. Auditors filled offices. Journalists camped outside, investors hesitated. Sam faced it all with calm precision. But Emma saw the toll, the sleepless eyes, the fading voice, the way his hands sometimes trembled when no one else was looking. Still, he never faltered in public. He wore dignity like armor. Then came the blow no one expected. A leaked document surfaced, an anonymous email sent to several media outlets accusing Sam of financial misconduct, false donations, and misused charity funds. Emma read it in disbelief. The accusations were detailed, cruelly fabricated, yet they carried just enough truth to sound plausible. Within hours, the board suspended Sam pending investigation. The foundation froze his authority. Emma stormed into the boardroom, anger trembling through every step. You can't do this, she said, her voice sharp. You built your careers on his vision, an older member. Mr. Harland adjusted his glasses and replied coldly. We're protecting the foundation from scandal, Miss Taylor. Not feeding one? You're protecting your fear, she shot back. Because he dared to show emotion. Be careful, Miss Taylor, another warned. Your position here isn't permanent, she met their gaze without flinching. Neither is yours after the meeting, she found Sam on the roof terrace. The city stretched out below like a sea of light. He didn't turn when she approached. They've taken it from you, she said. No, he replied quietly. They've taken the illusion of control. The foundation was never mine. I only borrowed it, don't say that, she whispered. It's your soul, he looked at her then. Eyes raw, but steady. If it was my soul, Emma. They couldn't touch it. The wind carried her hair across her face. He reached out instinctively to tuck it behind her ear. The gesture lingered, his hand trembling slightly against her cheek. You shouldn't be seen with me now, he said softly. They'll twist it again. Let them, she answered. They've already taken everything else. Not everything, he said, his voice lower now. They haven't taken this for a moment. They stood suspended in the night, close enough to feel the warmth of shared defiance. But before the distance could disappear entirely, his phone buzzed. He looked down. The color drained from his face. It's Leia, he murmured, answering quickly. Emma heard the panic in the assistant's voice, even before he spoke. What happened? The audit wasn't real, she said breathlessly. Harland fabricated it. He wanted your shares, Sam. He's planning to sell the foundation's assets under a new name. Silence fell. Cold and sharp. Sam's hand clenched. I should have seen it, he said under his breath. I thought betrayal was something that stopped hurting once you expected it. Emma stepped closer. Then let's stop him. How? By exposing him, she said firmly. We have the truth. That night became a war room. The three of them, Sam, Emma, and Leia, combed through files, emails, donation logs, hunting for the thread that would unravel Harland's plan. Hours stretched into dawn, their eyes heavy, but hearts resolute. Emma worked beside Sam, her focus fierce. If we prove this, she said, they can't take your name. It was never about my name, he replied quietly. It's about the artists. The people who believed in beauty before profit? Then we fight for them, she said. By morning, they had what they needed, a chain of messages linking Harland to offshore accounts. Enough to end his career? Sam looked at the screen. Exhaustion softening his voice. It's over. No, Emma said. It's just beginning. Later that day, he called a press conference. Reporters gathered again on the marble steps. This time, his eyes carried no charm, only truth. I have been accused of deception, he began. But the only deception is within those who called themselves guardians of art while stealing its soul. He revealed the evidence calmly. Every document, every name, the crowd buzzed with disbelief. When the truth hit the news, the city erupted. Harland and his allies resigned within hours. Investigations opened, apologies flooded in. But Sam didn't celebrate. He returned to the empty gallery that evening. Where the silver-cracked sculpture stood under fading light, Emma found him there, silent. "You won," she said softly. "No," he answered. "I survived." She stepped beside him. "That's enough for now," he said. "But I'm tired of surviving, Emma. I want to live." She looked at him, understanding more than words could hold. "Then live," she whispered, "with what you still have." He turned, eyes gentle yet fierce. "And what is that?" "Your heart," she said, her voice trembling. "And mine." The confession hung between them like fragile glass. Ready to shatter or shine, he reached out. His fingertips brushing her wrist, slow, deliberate, honest. "You make me forget what the world took from me," he whispered. "Then let me remind you what it gave you back," she replied. And for the first time in years, he smiled, not the practiced smile of the millionaire, but the unguarded smile of a man rediscovering warmth. Outside, dawn spilled over the skyline, washing the city in gold, a new beginning written in light. But beneath that sunrise, they both knew peace never lasted long. Somewhere in the shadows of power, another storm was already forming, one that would test not only their love, but their courage to choose truth over legacy. *. The Fall and the Promise. Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Life-Changing True Stories. Tonight's chapter unfolds like the quiet after a storm. When victory tastes like ash and truth costs more than lies ever did, the scandal had burned itself out in headlines. The villains exposed, the board dismantled, and yet Sam Layton's empire still trembled on fractured ground. Sponsors withdrew, investors hesitated, galleries whispered. The same mouths that once praised his vision now spoke his name with caution. Reputation, he discovered, was not restored by truth, but replaced by silence. Emma watched the aftermath from the sidelines, helpless and aching. The foundation that once pulsed with energy now stood half empty. Exhibitions postponed, projects frozen, only the echoes of what once was filled the corridors. Still, she came every morning, unlocking doors, watering the flowers, keeping the art alive, as if her faith could hold the roof from collapsing. Sam avoided cameras entirely now. He spent his days in meetings with lawyers and auditors. His nights walking the city alone. She sometimes saw him from her window, a tall figure in a dark coat, crossing wet streets at impossible hours, and wondered if loneliness sounded like his footsteps. One afternoon, weeks after Harlan's downfall, Sam called her into his office, the blinds half drawn, light slicing the room into shadow and gold. He didn't look up when she entered, only gestured toward a folder on the desk. "What is this?" she asked. "The Foundation's final reports," he said quietly. "I'm stepping down." The words struck her harder than she expected. "You can't," she whispered. "This is your life." "No," he said, eyes tired. "It was my armor. I built it to prove I wasn't broken, and all it proved is that I am." She felt tears threaten. "Then what happens to everything we built?" "You'll keep it alive," he said. "The board agreed to appoint you interim director." "Me?" She stammered. "I'm just a curator." "You were never just anything," he said softly. "You gave this place its soul again." He stood and walked to the window, rain beginning to patter against glass. "Do you remember what you told me that night on the roof?" he asked. "You said I should live with what I still have." She nodded. "Then that's what I'm doing. I'm leaving before this city devours what's left of me." "Where will you go?" "I don't know yet. Maybe somewhere without cameras, without noise. Somewhere I can paint again." The silence that followed was unbearable. She wanted to tell him not to go, to admit that her days were shaped by his absence and her nights haunted by the memory of his voice, but words felt fragile against inevitability. "When?" she asked. "Tomorrow," he said, and the finality in that single word felt like winter. That evening, she wandered through the gallery alone. touching frames, straightening labels, memorizing every corner they had once built together. The silver-cracked sculpture still stood at the center. Gleaming faintly under the last light, she remembered his voice when they'd repaired it. Maybe honesty is rarer than perfection, and realized that he had been speaking of himself. The next morning, London was gray and restless. She arrived early, the sky threatening rain again. Sam's office door stood open, his belongings already packed. The room stripped of warmth. He was standing by the desk. Tie undone, suitcase at his feet. "You're early," he said with a small smile. "I wanted to say goodbye," she whispered. "Goodbyes are overrated," he replied gently. "They make people think the story ends, doesn't it?" She asked. "Not if we remember," he said. She stepped closer, close enough to see the exhaustion behind his eyes. "You taught me that art is about truth," she said. "So here's mine," her voice trembled. "I'm scared of losing you." He looked at her for a long moment, then reached out, brushing his thumb across her cheek. "You won't lose me, Emma. You'll just stop seeing me every day. That's the same thing," she whispered. "No," he said softly. "Real connections don't fade with distance." They echo. He leaned forward then, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "The kind that said everything words couldn't. Take care of this place," he murmured. "And take care of yourself, Sam." But before she could finish, he picked up the suitcase, gave her one last look, half smile, half promise, and walked out. The elevator doors closed, taking him and the sound of belonging with them. Days became weeks, seasons blurred, and though the city healed, Emma did not. She poured herself into the foundation, working tirelessly, expanding programs, inviting new artists, turning pain into purpose. The press slowly changed its tone, calling her the quiet strength behind the latent legacy, but late at night, she still found herself looking at the door, waiting for footsteps that never came. Then, months later, an envelope arrived at her desk. No return address inside. A single photograph, a seaside village, cliffs and wildflowers. The sea stretching endless and blue, and a short handwritten note. "I found a place where colors breathe again. Keep painting the truth." As she held it for a long time, tears spilling silently. Somewhere he was healing. And somehow that was enough. Years passed. The foundation flourished under her guidance. She restored forgotten museums, funded young talent, and built a new gallery wing named the Promise Hall. At its heart stood the same sculpture they had repaired together, its silver veins now glowing under soft light beneath it. An inscription carved in marble. "Honesty is rarer than perfection," on opening night. As she stood before the crowd, delivering her speech, flashes of the past played behind her eyes, rain-streaked windows, whispered confessions, laughter over cold soup at 2 a.m., all the small moments that had shaped her into who she was now. When the applause faded and the guests dispersed, she lingered alone in the hall, the lights dimmed, and for a heartbeat, she felt it, that familiar presence, unseen yet unmistakable, a quiet warmth at her side. As if he were standing there again, watching, proud, smiling. She turned toward the sculpture, whispering to the air, "Wherever you are, I hope you're free, and somewhere beyond the city, on a cliff where waves met sky." A man with gray silver eyes looked toward the horizon, the wind carrying her words like a prayer. And for the first time in years, he felt peace, the return of color high, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Life-Changing True Stories. Today's chapter is about what happens when time softens pain but never erases truth. When two souls that once walked through the same storm find each other again under a gentler sky. 5 years had passed since Sam Layton vanished from the noise of London. 5 years since the foundation had last heard his voice. 5 years since Emma had learned how to breathe without him. The city had changed. Skyscrapers rose higher. The streets pulsed faster, and the Layton Foundation had become a sanctuary of light and learning. Its new wing, the Promise Hall, now drew visitors from around the world. Journalists called it a cathedral of honesty, but for Emma, it remained something quieter, a heartbeat of memory. She was no longer the trembling woman clutching her portfolio in a taxi. She had become someone the city respected. Graceful, self-possessed, a curator with vision. Yet beneath that calm exterior lay an ache that success couldn't heal. Every time she passed the silver-veined sculpture, she felt the echo of his presence, the way his eyes had searched for truth, the way his voice softened when he said her name that autumn. The foundation announced a new international collaboration, a traveling exhibition titled Echoes of Light, featuring artists who painted the intersection of loss and hope. The first destination was a small coastal village in southern Italy, a place known for its cliffs, its color, and its quiet. Emma agreed to attend the opening, perhaps out of curiosity, perhaps out of something deeper she could not name. When she arrived, the air smelled of salt and rosemary. The sun spilled gold across whitewashed walls. The gallery sat at the edge of the sea, waves whispering against the rocks below. As she entered, laughter and music greeted her, a blend of languages and accents and paintings that glowed with impossible hues, the kind of work that felt alive. Then she saw it, a canvas larger than the rest. Placed at the center under soft light, the title red colors in the dark, and beneath it, by Samuel Leighton. Her breath stopped. For a moment, the world blurred. The painting shimmered in shades of deep indigo and silver, streaks of crimson cutting through like veins of truth. At its base, the signature she knew too well. Her hands trembled as she reached for the frame. The brush strokes carried his touch, measured yet wild, deliberate yet free, a language she had once learned by heart. "Beautiful, isn't it?" A voice said behind her, smooth, warm, unmistakable. She turned slowly, and there he was, standing in the light. Older, yes. Lines tracing the corners of his eyes, hair touched with gray. But the same silver-gray gaze that had once seen through every wall. He wore a linen shirt rolled to his elbows, a quiet smile tugging at his lips. For a long moment, neither spoke. The world around them faded into sea wind and silence. "You still find the truth in everything," he said softly. "And you still run from it," she whispered back. The words half laughter, half tears. He took a step closer, the years melting in the space between them. "I didn't think you'd come," he said. "I didn't think you'd invite me," she replied. "I didn't," he said with a faint smile, "but I hoped you would." They walked together through the gallery, sound of the ocean mingling with soft music. He told her about the village, how he'd found peace in painting again, how the locals brought him bread in the mornings and silence in the evenings, how he'd learned that creation could heal what ambition had broken. "I thought leaving would save me," he said, "but it was remembering that finally did." "Remembering what?" "You." The simplicity of the word undid her. All the walls she'd built around her heart cracked quietly. "You were the only one who saw through me," he continued. "Not as the man the world loved or hated, but as someone trying to be enough." "And you were," she whispered. "You always were." They stopped before the painting again. "Its colors alive like breath. Do you know what this one means?" he asked. She shook her head. "It's about the night we rebuilt the sculpture," said. "I wanted to capture the way light found us even through the cracks." She smiled faintly. "You still believe in repairing what's broken?" "I do," he said, "especially when it's worth keeping." They stepped out onto the terrace overlooking the sea. The horizon blazed orange and pink. The waves glittered like spilled glass. For a while they just stood there. No titles, no pressure. Just two people who had survived everything except the truth they had once buried. "Emma," he said finally, "I read about what you did with the foundation, how you turned it into a home for artists who had nowhere to go. You did more than I ever could." "I did what you taught me," she said softly. "To believe in beauty when no one else does? Then maybe I left too soon," he murmured. "Maybe we both did," she replied. The wind lifted her hair. And before she could speak again, he reached out, his fingers brushing her cheek the same way they had years ago. Only this time, there was no hesitation. "I spent years painting color into the dark," he said, "but none of it felt complete without you." Her eyes glistened. "And I spent years chasing truth," she whispered, "but it never felt alive until now." He smiled then, that same rare, quiet smile that once changed the air around him. "You think we can start again?" he asked. "We already have," she said, her voice steady. The moment you picked up that brush, they stayed on the terrace long after the sun disappeared. The stars spilling across the sea like scattered hope. He told her about the school he'd started for local children, how he painted with them under the open sky, how laughter had become his favorite art form. She told him about the young artists she mentored, how she still wrote his words on the walls of the foundation. Honesty is rarer than perfection. And together they laughed softly at the memory. Later that night, as they walked back to the village square, music drifted from a nearby cafe. A small band playing an old jazz tune. Couples danced barefoot on the cobblestones. Sam extended his hand to her. "Dance with me," he said. "You never struck me as the dancing type." She teased. "Neither did you," he replied, and she laughed. Taking his hand under the string lights, they moved slowly, awkwardly at first, then easily, her head resting against his shoulder, the ocean humming in the distance. "I used to think love was something that destroyed," he said quietly. "But maybe it's the only thing that ever creates." "Then keep creating," she whispered. "We both will." When the night deepened and the crowd thinned, they sat by the sea, bare feet in the sand, the waves brushing close. "You know," he said softly, "I once told you people like me ruin good things. I remember. I was wrong," he said. "Sometimes good things save us instead." She smiled, turning to him, her eyes bright even in the dark. "So what happens now?" "Now," he said, "we stop surviving and start living." He leaned forward then, and this time there was no storm between them. It's only the sound of waves and the quiet promise of peace found at last. Morning came like a whisper, sunlight spilling over the cliffs, and in the soft glow of a new day. The man who had once hidden behind walls and the woman who had once rebuilt broken glass stood hand in hand, watching the horizon paint itself in colors neither had seen before. The world would go on to tell its stories. Newspapers would write headlines about the reunion of the fallen millionaire and the curator who changed him. But for them, it wasn't about redemption or spectacle anymore. It was simply about finding color again. Together, asterisk.